Hey, Dina, we do have participants on. We do have participants on and they can hear. It's just, if they have trouble hearing, there's a volume button. Can they hear us? Are you there? Okay. Who do we have on the phone? Okay, hey Emily. Hey. Okay. Perfect. Yep.
Thanks so much. That's helpful. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, please. All right. Well, thank you so much. Good afternoon. It's great to see everyone here today. We're glad you could all join us. As you all know, we have a crippling teacher shortage in our state, and unfortunately, the pipeline to fill those vacancies is dwindling as well. So why are teachers leaving? Okay, we have some people on the line. All right, so why are teachers leaving, and what can be done to get them back into the classroom? In 2015, I formed a teacher shortage task force with the goal of finding ways to alleviate the teacher shortage. The focus of that task force did not include compensation, which is a legislative responsibility, and we had already taken that request to the legislature. We had asked for competitive teacher pay. But one of the task force recommendations was to survey those teachers who are leaving the profession, teachers who hold an Oklahoma teaching certificate but no longer are using it. So you may ask, who were some of the people? What we have is the survey responses came from all over the state. All regions were represented. About 49% of respondents have master's degrees, 5% with doctoral degrees, and 7% nationally board certified. 45% were certified secondary education teachers. 40% were certified in early childhood and elementary, and 9% were special education and speech pathologists. 75% of the respondents were female and 21% male. All right, so research of this magnitude takes money. We are very grateful for the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, who offered to fund this research, which was commissioned by Cole Hargrave Snodgrass and Associates. So with me today is Pat McFerrin, also from Cole Hargrave Snodgrass and Associates, and Brent Bushy, as well as Dr. Robin Miller, who leads the teacher shortage task force and works in the agency around teacher preparation and certification. So the results of this comprehensive study are truly fascinating, but not entirely surprising. Before we get into those results, let's hear from OPSRC Executive Director Brent Bushy, who is also a member of the teacher shortage task force, to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoffmeister. It's great to see here everyone today. Clearly, this is an important topic. As serious as the teacher shortage has been, and as much as the hardship it has caused our school and students, today we finally have something to be excited about. We finally have hard data that tells us what is really driving the teacher shortage task force. I'm going to leave all the details to Superintendent Hoffmeister. But I want to take a moment to thank the Teacher Shortage Task Force. I'm really excited to be a part of that work, and I think that they are leading some of the most important work here in the state of addressing this task force. The work's been together. The group has been together for 2.5 years, and this is clearly not an easy problem to solve. And the recommendations that have come out of that workforce are driving legislative changes, as well as building partnerships with the communities, and I'm glad that the Public School Resource Center can be a part of that. I also want to take a moment to thank some of my favorite folks, the Board of Directors for the Resource Center, for understanding the value of this survey and allowing us to fund this work with the State Department. With that, I'll hand it back to Superintendent Hoffmeister. Yes, Brent, B-R-E-N-T, Bushy, B-U-S-H-E-Y.
All right. Thank you, Brent. So we had tremendous response to the online survey. Starting with a list of 30,000, almost 30,000 former Oklahoma teachers, we received completed responses from more than 7,500. After removing those who are 65 years old or over, we were left with nearly 5,500 respondents. This gave researchers a margin of error of less than 1% and allowed us to take a look at the sub-data with a great deal of confidence. All right, let's look at the first slide. Why did you quit teaching in Oklahoma public schools? That was the first question we would like you to see. So this was an open-ended question. As you can see from the charts, at 20% in the light green, low pay is the top reason respondents say they quit. Close behind, again, open-ended questions, so it's how they decided to answer this. Close behind, 19% cited moving out of state, and 14% said they quit teaching for a better opportunity. That quite possibly could have been a better opportunity teaching out of state, making more money. It's also safe to assume that in some instances, an individual found a better opportunity with another job making more money. As we are able to dig a little deeper into this research, we noticed that the pay was chosen more often among those who taught in Oklahoma fewer than 6 years, at 23%. And it was more common among men than it was women. This is troubling, as Oklahoma needs more gender equity in classrooms. Right. Slide 2. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? Most teachers quit teaching because of pay. 90% of respondents under the age of 65 either somewhat agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. There is no doubt pay alone will not solve the teacher shortage, or, frankly, any other challenges facing public education. There is no single strategy to win, but we're not anywhere in the ballgame in any way if we are not offering our teachers competitive teacher pay. As you look further into this data, we do see the strength of responses concerning pay drop a bit with longevity. So you will see that as you examine this next slide. The key takeaway here is that pay is a huge factor for those under the age of 45. This is alarming, but not surprising. While we love and absolutely appreciate our veteran teachers, we also know that our younger teachers are the future of public education in Oklahoma. If we cannot get our newest teachers to stay in Oklahoma and teach, or start even to teach in our classrooms, our pipeline will continue to deteriorate. We're already seeing this happen in our colleges of education, for instance, where some of the reporting of enrollment drop of more than 30% over the past few years has already been reported out. We're seeing this also evident in the decrease of applicants for teaching positions and the surge of emergency certified teachers. When I commissioned the Teacher Shortage Task Force in the late 2015, we were at a crisis point with 977 board-approved emergency certifications. 2 years later, that number has nearly doubled. Fewer teachers mean larger class sizes, which in turn means overworked educators. The cycle continues. Teachers are worn thin. Respondents were asked this next question. From when you started until your very last day teaching, your last year, would you say the quality of the working environment for teachers in Oklahoma improved or deteriorated? Almost half said it had deteriorated a great deal. Another 31% said it somewhat deteriorated. Those who taught in the classroom more than 5 years reported seeing the most negative change. When asked why they felt the working environment had deteriorated, 32% of the respondents cited lack of funding and low pay. Our teachers need to be supported, so we've got to get them back. And let's look and see what it would take to get those teachers back into the classroom as we examine the next slide. Nearly half of our youngest respondents, 48%, said a pay increase would get them back into the classroom. There's more. 37% of those 25 to 34 years of age and 37% of those 35 to 44 years of age also agree that pay alone would mean a return to the classroom. This is absolutely significant. Among all respondents, 31% said increased pay would get them teaching again. These are individuals under the age of 65 with an Oklahoma teaching certificate. If we could get those 31% back into the classroom, and we're talking about thousands as we extrapolate this data, it would not just stem the teacher shortage, but it absolutely would help with an entirely significant slowing down of that, where we would not see it solved completely, but it would be immensely a great help in slowing that, and it would help our entire state. I have advocated for a $5,000 teacher pay raise to bring our teachers to the regional average since I took office. In the past, it has been presented as a supplemental request and phased in, but not any longer. This year, we are submitting a proposed budget that reflects a $5,000 pay raise and directly asking for that to be put into the budget this year. That is an increase of $289 million. We will continue to lose teachers if we fail to offer competitive pay, regionally competitive pay. And this research strongly confirms that. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I also know that Pat McFerrin, as well as Brent Bushy or Dr. Miller, are also available if we have additional questions that would be helpful for them to answer. Is there anything that you would like to ask?
Other than pay, what's the, I mean, is there something else that you feel like is quote unquote the easiest to go after?
Yes, so what we know is that that work environment was key. And we also know that teachers are leaving because of better opportunities, and we saw that more pronounced with our special education teachers as well as our speech pathologists. We also saw that those who are alternatively certified were more pay sensitive in the way they answered the survey. In fact, 40% left because of pay for a better opportunity. Do you have any comments about what else? Maybe this part on veteran teachers?
Yeah, I think I would maybe pick a little bit and maybe alter your question. Just I'll answer a different question, I guess, around the edges, because I'm doing the analysis of the data, not if it's the right policy or not. What we did tend to see was, yes, pay was the top concern, but there were concerns about classroom management and having control of being practicing the art of teaching among some of the teachers. That tend to get higher the longer the person had been in the classroom. But that kind of bucket was the number 2 reason why teachers had quit. But it was well behind pay.
And we know that veteran teachers who had taught more than 11 years, as well as library science, early childhood certified teachers, and teachers who taught in urban districts believed the quality of the workplace had deteriorated the most among all of the respondents. So I think really working to ensure teachers are supported, that they have the professional development and training that they need, is going to be key in keeping them in the classroom. This is something that costs funds, and it is very important that that is used wisely and strategically as students' needs have broadened and our learners are increasingly diverse. Classroom management really could take different, I think, angles in how you look at this. Part of that has to do with the experience of a teacher to know how to keep and maintain focus on learning. When someone comes into the classroom that may have tremendous subject content knowledge, they may not have the classroom management experience to be able to work effectively, and that is exhausting, and it's also not the best for students. So the second way to answer that would be that as class size grows, that only, I think, further exasperates the condition when we have about 46% of our teachers that are teaching in our public schools that have only been teaching 1 to 5 years. Do you have something you want to add to that? Why don't you?
So on the topic of classroom management, this is really why the alternative certification path, it has now a required course in classroom management as well as in pedagogy. In thinking about the supports that ed prep programs provide and the preparation for their candidates or pre-service teachers to manage a classroom. Certainly those best practices are shared, but we have to think about the other pathways to the classroom. So if we're thinking alternative certification, emergency certification, and that's another initiative from the task force, which would be supporting our emergency certified teachers where they may be ill prepared for managing a classroom.
Are there specific examples of how lack of funding manifested itself in the deterioration in the workplace?
Well, we know that our student population has grown by 50,000 students, and we're operating in public schools on the same dollars as 2008. So we have not had funding keep pace with the growth in enrollment. In addition, we see that the needs of our students have become increasingly diverse, which just simply means that the technical expertise to deliver effective instruction is increasing, and the need for services to surround and support that student to be able to work independently and learn for the long run has increased as well. So there definitely is a financial aspect to this, but there is also a need for more individualized focus on individual students. We had some teachers that shared with us thoughts through email. And much of what they had to say was how there's not time to prepare before school starts when you think you have, what was the quote? I have it in a presentation for tomorrow. Maybe Carolyn is here in the room. She had so many desks, and it was under 30-something, it was under 40. And then the first day she had a roster, and she had well above that in her class, and not even enough desks for the kids. So when positions are open and they go unfilled, or a school district has to recruit someone that is not certified, that has not even applied in any way to be a teacher, to come into the classroom and make their way into the school, that takes time, and there's going to either be a substitute or the crowding of classroom conditions. And that's just not the best or ideal or good for kids. So I think that what we see is a combination of effects that come from growth in student population, deepening needs, and fewer resources. And our teachers that are new or that are stepping into the classroom that don't have a background through a college of education or through any kind of additional training, they have just been granted an emergency certification. They're walking in, but they have yet to receive the kind of support that would help them help students.
What's your message to the legislature?
Well, our message would be that we can't ignore this. We can't dismiss it. We have a crisis that we have seen manifested and deepened over the last 3 years with the lack of applicants in Oklahoma. We have 30,000 educators who are paying to keep their certification active in Oklahoma, but they are not teaching in an Oklahoma public school. So that is who we first approached through this online survey to get data and not simply act and develop philosophy or strategy or even budget requests based on what we think, but instead we needed to know. And now we have the evidence that confirms that absolutely we can attract back thousands of educators who already hold and have made certain that they are holding an active Oklahoma teaching certificate, and they're able to come back. Thousands have said they will come back if pay is higher. We believe the right place to start is with competitive teacher compensation, and that's what we will be requesting.
How did you decide to set it at 5,000?
When I first stepped into office, that would reach the regional average, and that was our first priority.
Can you talk about the strategy of including that in your budget request this year? I mean,
Yeah, we can't wait any longer. When we first made the request with a phase-in of different increments to reach that 5,000 over a period of years, that was something that was made before we knew what was going to happen with the skyrocketing requests of emergency certified teachers. And keep in mind, special education cannot be emergency certified. Many of those positions remain unfilled. And we see substitutes that are teaching those classes. That isn't good for kids. We have raised standards. We have implemented higher expectations in the way we are defining student mastery or proficiency. And we must catch up to these reforms and initiatives to give our kids a competitive edge. And it starts with teacher compensation to draw back these teachers and to stem the teacher shortage.
Can you talk some about the importance of experience? This is probably the most shocking thing. 40% of teachers are in their first to fifth year. If we had that big a percentage of engineers building bridges, wouldn't we want to drive across them? So can you talk some about experience?
Yeah. So when we look, in fact, you could speak to this. When we look, let me just say this another way to be sure that I'm accurate in what I've just said. When you look at the average length of stay of teachers in Oklahoma, we lose 46% in the first 1 to 5 years. And that's why it matters what they say the reasons are for leaving and what it would take to get them back. Clearly, being regionally competitive is important in keeping teachers beyond 5 years. Do you have anything to add?
Well, we have that 6 year. We actually did a study looking at the last 13 years that would provide this statistic, and that is that Oklahoma teachers stay in the classroom on an average of 6 years.
Yeah, that's all teachers. It's about 49,000 teachers in Oklahoma right now. So the average length of stay, including those that we all know and love, who taught our kids, that have been teaching for 40 years, they are averaged into that. So the average length of stay is only 6 years in Oklahoma.
Did your raise request also include the support staff?
No, this particular raise is specific to teachers at $5,000 across the board.
So the 31% who said they would come back, who you interviewed, or 30,000, so what would that, is it, we thinking 9,000 teachers? Is that what is that how the math works out? Or?
You know what? I'm going to let Pat McFerrin answer that.
Okay, our original list size was around 30,000. When you factor out we didn't have ages on those when we asked them. But if you look at those who said they were over the age of 65, you factor those out, and then you apply the 31% to those under 65, I think you're looking closer in the 7,000 to 8,000 range of teachers that have said that pay alone would get me back into the classroom.
And
1,846. And remember, those are only representing the positions that were vacant that a school was able to recruit someone out of field to fill. That doesn't include the openings that remain unfilled, as well as the numbers that will be retiring each year. So this is a pipeline issue that we know is down. It's reported around 30%. And nationwide, I understand that the teacher colleges are down closer to 24%. We even have some in Oklahoma that are higher than 30% drop in enrollment in the last 2 years.
With a lot of the budget cuts, I know you guys cut a lot of the fine arts programs. With this raise, are you looking to reinstate any of those? Or?
Yeah. So it is really important that we have a well-rounded education, and I think that the arts are emblematic of the kind of instruction that we need that is beyond the core subjects that sometimes we focus on. What we know is important is that as budget cuts occurred in the past few years, there were certain programs that were cut due to a loss of funding, not necessarily because there was a lack of teachers or instructors. So this is something that I think speaks more to the deterioration of the working environment and the stress that is experienced by educators when they are asked to take on and shoulder more responsibilities that they willingly do because they're still there, but they are worn thin, and we are wearing them out. And it is important that we provide the support, including those support services that are introduced into particular elementary schools, particularly where we're trying to work to have our students reading at grade level long before third grade. These are provided by support service professionals who also deserve competitive compensation. But for the purposes of this, we really are focusing on the need for our certified teachers to have regionally competitive pay.
So this $5,000 that you've been asking for several years is now the same as the step up
Yes.
group is asking for. Do you feel any more confident that now that you got some business leaders behind you that maybe it will finally happen?
I think without question, the need for competitive teacher pay has really resonated within families as they've experienced larger class sizes for their own children or grandchildren. The business community is feeling the impact of a reduced calendar week with 4-day school weeks. We know that one reason that we see an increase in the decision to move to a 4-day school week is to attract teachers who are needing to work a second job in order to stay as a teacher in Oklahoma. So this is something that I think we will see many areas improve as we address the real need, which is a teacher. I mean, again, we've raised standards. We've done a whole variety of measures and reforms to ensure that our kids have a competitive education. But if you don't have a teacher to teach those higher standards, to meet the needs we've now identified, then our kids are not going to be competitive. And we have both a constitutional responsibility in our state constitution and, I believe, a moral responsibility.
Talk some more about autonomy of teachers,
Yeah.
experienced teachers, to make decisions in the classroom. You kind of mentioned that a while ago, and the dissatisfaction that was expressed in the survey with a lack of ability to manage their own classrooms.
Yes, you will see this in the survey results, and I'll ask Pat to maybe jump in here with some things that were of note to him. It absolutely was identified. I think you may have seen on one of the slides that was one of the things listed. The need for teachers to be able to make decisions that were right for their students in the classroom, that absolutely was cited. I don't know if yeah, here we go. Would you have oh, I'm sorry, I messed that up. Would you like to answer that a little bit further?
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
And I'm not sure you can see here on the first slide the open-ended why you decided not to teach anymore. You do see the leadership regulations category there at 6%, and that's where those were comments like, my principal doesn't let me do this, or my district doesn't let me do this, and those were really that was where that was. We also, and I know some of you have the booklets that were handed out, page 25 on that does show the differences where you have pay, and then believing that I no longer have control over my decisions on instruction. The standards are too strict. We spend too much time testing. Those are a distant second, but it is a group that's clustered there as being important as well. So I hope that answers your questions, but it clearly is part of it. The longer the teacher was in the classroom in Oklahoma, the closer, the more pay comes down in importance, and these classroom management skills go up. I think we had those under 65. It was right at 5,500. I'm sorry, 5,487 to be precise. Of those under 65.
So, Superintendent, is a part of your ask to the legislature going to involve autonomy issues? Because these are really issues that I hear veteran teachers complain most about, and especially on the way out, is a lack of autonomy as a focus on standards have gone up, and hypercriticism of public school teachers has gone up. In the sense of a lack of autonomy has gone down with teachers. So is that going to be a part of your ask when you go to the legislature about these environmental issues, which are harder to talk about than dollars? Dollars are pretty easy.
I think what this boils down to is respect. Respect for teachers as professional educators, respect for their experience, respect for the years that they have given to hone their craft, to know how to meet the needs of individual students. So a part of showing respect is to do the right thing, which is to offer competitive teacher compensation so that teachers can stay in Oklahoma as a broader priority in the commitment to having a competitive public education system for all Oklahoma school kids. Yes?
Was there any difference in this study, was there any difference between what teachers who also coach, their responses, anything like that, anything notable? Like, do they tend to stay longer, do they tend to leave earlier?
Interesting. I could only say that I don't recall any questions that would have pulled that out, other than these are individuals who have maintained a certificate in Oklahoma who have left. So the question about extra duties or trying to find ways to add to pay, I think could be a part of that, but I'm speculating.
We'll see. We did have one question along those lines about being expected to do more outside of the classroom, and it wasn't one of the top 10 concerns out of the 28 or so that we looked at, but we didn't have a cross tab to ask if they had been a coach or had these other duties.
All right. And if we didn't allow anybody on the phone if there is a question, but I do want to make sure you know that we're aware that there are those listening if there is one.
Did the teachers say how much a pay raise would have to be to get them to come back?
That was not asked. That was not asked of them. I would argue, though, that the laws of economics apply in education when it comes to pay, and anyone who is, a member of the business community understands that we have to be competitive in all sectors for our state to be able to provide the needs of our community. It starts, I think, with education. And so that is the ask. Regionally competitive pay with those states that surround Oklahoma. That's a start. I don't like to be average. I think we've set our goals higher than that when it comes to outcomes for students, but this is the first step, and it is a significant step when we consider the past few years in the economic downturn experienced by our state. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your attendance and questions. We do have the survey available as well as a executive summary at the very beginning, and we will have links to those available as well online. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.